We could see a major severe weather event across the east this weekend. Record-breaking temperatures are currently making their way into the southeast, and a powerful storm system is headed towards the west coast. It's November 10th, 2025. Let's get into the weather updates. First off, I wanted to start by taking a look at our snowstorm. This is an impressive surface low that has been pulling moisture off of the Great Lakes, and it is currently making its way down into the south and southeast. This will eventually move through portions of Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, and then try to push a lot of the snow up along the Appalachian Mountain Range. Some models do think some of this snow will make it onto the eastern side of the mountains, so a potential coating from Charlotte up to Richmond is possible. Don't expect big accumulations, but again, a dusting I think is possible. There's the possibility of a severe weather outbreak this weekend. What you're looking at right here is from Colorado State University, and you can see stretching from around the Dallas-Fort Worth region all the way up through Wisconsin, they have a large marginal to slight risk. And this is a day 6, so this is pretty early to be putting this out here. The earlier they put out these severe watch zones, the higher confidence they have in that severe event taking place. Let's take a look at our latest European model. You can see all of that cold air continuing to dive down into the south. This is going to last for about another 2 days before that system begins to move off into the north and east. And then we get a little bit of a zonal flow across the states with cold air and moisture continuing to funnel into New England. And then you can see we have a storm system beginning to move into the west coast. We're going to get a little bit of a cool down coming up here for the west and above average precipitation. But this is as we get into the end of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can see all of this moisture, and this is going to be related to our severe weather here in a second. But you can see all this moisture funneling in to the desert southwest, and a lot of this will be high elevation snow as well. Sierra Nevada should get a lot of snow from this system down here. Getting into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, here's where things get interesting. You start to get a little bit of a trough pushing down here through the northern Rockies, and we have a low pressure system, or we have a shortwave kind of bowling ball trough down here trying to eject out through the plains. Now these two systems are likely to interact and enhance each other. So here we go, cold air, warmer air, tons of moisture, and we have a big upper level low up to the northeast. This is a lot of energy here and a lot of instability stretching from Texas up through the Midwest. Now, do these systems meet a little bit farther out to the west, a little bit farther out to the east? That's going to determine where our severe weather is, probably how intense it is as well. You can really see what's happening here when we look at our 850 millibar level. Look at these wind speeds. We get a really nice jet streak here from Texas up through Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and then pushing up towards Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And then as we push through Saturday and Sunday, that jet streak and that spin, that vorticity begins to move off into the east. And then maybe we have a Dixie Alley threat leading into really an eastern seaboard threat as we get later into the weekend. We're going to have the moisture availability here. We're likely going to have the shear. We're going to have that cool and warm air interaction from that cold air sinking in from Canada and that warm air from the Gulf. This is typically what you expect to see a few times a year during the fall season. So this is something that I know a lot of people will be watching very closely, especially because the interaction between these three major systems could really make this a widespread severe event. Okay, so what happens after this system moves off to the east? We have another trough beginning to dig down into the northwest, and we have some more moisture continuing to funnel into the southwest. You're gonna get some pretty good precipitation over the next 6 to 10 days out there in Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Western Texas. But now we're getting towards the end of the run, the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd. This looks like a lot of cold air and a lot of snow for the Rockies. So that'll be nice because you're going through a little bit of a warm stretch. The question is, at the end of this run, does that troughing transfer out east, which right now it does, and it actually brings a pretty decent snowstorm to the upper Midwest and northern plains. So potentially portions of Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, and the Dakotas. You can see out west, the European is expecting big snow totals from this system moving through. Now, again, this is high elevation. We're not really seeing low elevation snow with this, but hey, at least it's good for ski season. So why are we seeing this pattern change? Well, as we move forward in time, and you can see right here, we do have this blocking still up over Greenland. This is going to try to move down a little bit to the south and west, and this is going to allow a lot of these cold air troughs moving in down off Alaska to dive down into the west instead of really making their way over the west down into the southeast. You can see this blocking is going to be directly over our head here, and now suddenly we're in this positive NAO instead of this negative NAO. So it's just really a quick shift. I expect this to last somewhere around 10 days before that cold air begins to transfer back to the east towards the end of November into December. But in the short term, there's a storm system into the west coast. There's another one. There's another one. So the people out there who are sick of this ridging and dry weather will enjoy this. This is going to bring, like I said, snow to the high elevations, cooler temperatures for a while, and a lot of precipitation. Although as we get back towards the end of this run, like I said, the pattern begins to favor the East Coast. I did quickly want to go over all of these daily records that look like will be broken today and tomorrow. Look at our daily minimum temperature records that are expected to be broken on Tuesday. We're freezing in Central Florida and Tampa. We're in the low to mid 40s down here in Miami. Miami. And we're almost to the teens in portions of northern Mississippi and Alabama. The single digits for southern Appalachia. And we're freezing along the coast of North Carolina and South Carolina. Moving over to our daily max temperature records, we're only going to get up to maybe 47 to 49 degrees here along the Carolina coast, and portions of central Florida will not even break out of the 50s. This is pretty wild for early November. And you want to know how cold this actually is? This entire area is seeing temperatures 20 to 25 degrees below normal for this time of year. There's a couple more things I want to talk about here before I wrap up the video, and that has to do with our December outlook. What we're looking at right here is our European extended MJO forecast. Now we're currently sitting somewhere around phase 5 and 6. I'll tell you this, the state's weather gets a lot more interesting if we push through phase 7 to phase 1 as we're getting into winter or as we're in winter. And look what's being forecast right now. We're expected to get into phase 7 as we get into the end of November, and then look what's happening here as we get towards mid-December. The MJO potentially could be entering a phase 8. A phase 8 tends to be colder and snowier for the states, and depending on what's happening with our other teleconnections, this could really favor a snowy December and early start to January. Here's the most updated European weekly, taking a look at our Arctic oscillation. The mean is still expected to remain negative as we move through December. Now we've seen the control through this update go slightly positive in some areas, although the overall thinking is that it's still going to remain neutral to negative. We also see a positive NAO potentially for the end of November and to kick off December, but then we see this big collapse here into potentially a strong negative NAO as we get into mid-December. And remember what I said, if we're entering phase 8 of the MJO in mid-December and we have a negative NAO, we have a negative Arctic oscillation, that's going to favor a white Christmas for a lot of people out east. We could get some snow farther down to the south or farther out to the east than we typically do. Again, though, outlooks are way harder to talk about than forecasts because things change so rapidly. This negative PNA also looks good for Christmas time out east. Again, if you want a cold and snowy Christmas, things are pointing towards that for the East Coast, not the West Coast right now. But there's some things that could change that would set this up for the West over the East. Again, I'm just here to give you the updates as we see them. And that negative AO we're expecting for the better part of December does typically favor at least average to below average temperatures from coast to coast if you're looking forward to that. If you haven't already seen, this is NOAA, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's 3 to 4 week temperature outlook. So this would be from November 22nd to December 5th. And it looks cold for much of the US except for portions of the southern plains and the southeast. And take a look at our precipitation forecast. This is also favoring a lot of moisture for much of the country from the west to the east coast. Could this be because of our MJO phase trying to enter into phase 7 and 8 as we get into this time frame, combined with this unstable polar vortex and weak La Nina? This is what I mean when I say that December could actually be cold and snowy from coast to coast. A lot of times, typically the weather favors the west or favors the east, but with what's going on in our atmosphere, we may see a very, very wintry United States for the month of December. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I make posts like this every single morning, and I go live every morning as well to try and answer all of your weather-related questions. I also have an awesome weather Discord you can join. It's completely free. The link is down in the description if you want to become part of the climate crew. It's a great place to get daily and live weather updates and hang out and just talk with other weather enthusiasts. Again, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video or the next live stream.